I had always prided myself on being someone who planned for everything. I knew what to expect in my career, in my marriage, and in life in general. At 37 years old, I had built a life that many people would envy. My name is James, and I was a biotechnologist living in Los Angeles. My wife, Jennifer, and I had been married for over 3 years. We had a beautiful son, Alex, who had just turned 8 months old. Our life was everything I had ever dreamed of: a lovely home in a peaceful neighborhood, vacations to faraway places, a secure job, and a family that meant the world to me. But life, as it often does, has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. We were still adjusting to the whirlwind that was parenthood. I had no idea that the most significant challenge of my life was about to begin. Jennifer and I had always been close, even when we were dating. We had met during a conference, and despite our differences, she was a designer and I was a scientist. We clicked in a way that felt natural. Our relationship moved fast, and we married within a year. I thought we had a bond that could withstand anything. The first few months after Alex's birth were hectic, but I loved it. I loved coming home from a long day at work to the sound of him laughing, to see him staring at me with those big, curious eyes. I cherished every moment, from changing diapers in the middle of the night to rocking him to sleep. I tried my best to be a good father, a supportive husband, and the provider of our little family. Jennifer had taken 6 months off from work for maternity leave, and I thought she was adjusting well. But lately, something fell off. Jennifer had become distant. She was always on her phone, scrolling through something that made her smile in a way I hadn't seen in months. At first, I thought it was just her reconnecting with her coworkers before returning to work. But the more I thought about it, the more I began to feel uneasy. She would laugh at things I couldn't see, and when I asked what was so funny, she'd just shrug it off and say it was a message from one of the girls at work. She was always so vague, and I wanted to trust her. I needed to believe that everything was okay. But the doubts kept growing. It all came to a head one Tuesday afternoon in March. I had met up with my best friend, Michael, for lunch at a small cafe. Michael and I had been friends since college. He was an architect, and I was a biotechnologist, two completely different worlds, but we always got along. We met once a month at this cafe, which was a halfway point between our offices. This time, however, Michael was acting strangely. He wasn't making eye contact with me, and he kept fiddling with his napkin. He wasn't eating, just pushing his food around on his plate. "Mike, what's going on? You're acting like something's wrong," I said, trying to lighten the mood with a joke. But even I could tell that something was off. Michael sighed deeply, set down his fork, and looked me straight in the eyes. "James, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it." The seriousness in his voice sent a chill down my spine. I had a feeling I wasn't going to like whatever he had to say. "What happened?" I asked, my stomach tightening in anticipation. Michael pulled out his phone and, after a moment's hesitation, turned the screen toward me. The photo was clear. It was of Jennifer, sitting at a table in one of the city's most upscale restaurants. She was smiling, leaning forward, and next to her, a man I didn't recognize sat so close that their shoulders were almost touching. But it wasn't just the proximity that caught my attention. It was his hand. The man's hand was resting on Jennifer's hand on the table, in an intimate gesture that left no room for misinterpretation. Jennifer wasn't pulling away. She was smiling. My heart skipped a beat. I felt a rush of heat in my chest. "Where did you get this?" I asked, my voice shaky and louder than I intended. "My cousin Carla works as a hostess at that restaurant," Michael said, still holding the phone up for me to see. "She sent me this photo last night. She's seen Jennifer there with that guy several times over the past few weeks, always at lunchtime, always at the same corner table." I couldn't process the words. The image was burned into my mind. My wife, the woman I loved, was sitting in a restaurant with another man, looking at him in a way that was entirely too familiar. My thoughts were racing. Was I just being paranoid? Was this some kind of misunderstanding? "Who is this guy?" I asked, my voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. I could barely believe I was asking the question. "I don't know his name, but Carla said he always pays with a corporate card," Michael replied, shaking his head. "Seems like he's from Jennifer's company." That was it. My stomach dropped. My mind was spinning. I tried to keep it together, but I could feel the tears welling up. This wasn't just a friendly lunch. This was something more, and it wasn't the first time. I need to go, I said, suddenly standing up from the table, my mind reeling. I didn't even look at Michael as I grabbed my wallet and threw enough cash on the table to cover both our meals. I didn't say goodbye, I just walked out. James, wait. Michael called after me, but I couldn't stop. My legs were moving before my mind could catch up. I needed to get home. I needed to confront Jennifer. I needed answers. The drive home felt like it took forever. I didn't care about traffic or the world around me. My mind was consumed by the image on Michael's phone. Was Jennifer having an affair? Was everything I thought I knew about her a lie? I parked in the garage and sat there for a moment, breathing heavily, trying to calm myself. But nothing was calming me. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears as I walked into the house, trying to steady my hands. When I stepped inside, everything seemed strangely normal. The house was quiet, except for the faint sound of the TV coming from the living room. Jennifer was sitting on the couch in sweatpants, her hair messy, holding her phone and laughing quietly at something on the screen. She didn't see me at first, but when she heard me walk in, she looked up surprised. James, what are you doing here? I thought you had meetings until 5. I just stood there, frozen. The woman sitting on the couch, the woman I thought I knew so well, didn't seem to match the one in the photos. My thoughts were a blur. Was she the same person? Was this all just one big lie? Without saying a word, I pulled out my phone, opened the photo from Michael, and placed it on the coffee table, the screen facing up. Who is he? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. Jennifer looked down at the phone. I could see the moment she realized what I had discovered. Her face went pale, and her hands started trembling. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see the guilt in her eyes. I can explain, she said, her voice shaky. But there was no explanation. Not for me. Not for the betrayal. I could feel my anger rising with each passing second. I had built this life with Jennifer. We had planned everything together. Our marriage, our family, our future. It was all supposed to be a partnership, a bond that nothing could break. But in that moment, as I stood there looking at the woman I thought I knew, I realized that bond had been shattered. The photo on the table, the undeniable proof that she was involved with someone else, was all I needed to see. Explain it to me, Jennifer, I said, my voice as cold as the knot tightening in my chest. How do you explain this? Jennifer's eyes darted between the photo and my face, panic spreading across her features. Her lips quivered as she tried to form words, but it was clear she was caught off guard. James, it's not what you think. I never meant for this to happen. He's just a co-worker, someone I've been working with on some projects, she stammered, her voice trembling. I want to believe her. I truly did. But the image in front of me was too damning. I watched as she nervously glanced at the photo again, her fingers twitching like she was ready to reach out and grab it, like she wanted to erase it from existence. A co-worker who puts his hand on yours at a fancy restaurant? A co-worker who shares intimate moments like this? I shot back, my voice rising. You've been lying to me, Jennifer. I've trusted you. I've been here working my ass off, taking care of our son while you've been sneaking around with him. I could see the tears starting to well up in her eyes. She was starting to crack. James, please, she pleaded, standing up from the couch and taking a tentative step toward me. It's not like that. He's just been helping me adjust to work again. You know how much I've missed the office, how much I wanted to feel like myself again. It's just been lunches and talks. Nothing more. Nothing more. I repeated, the anger in my voice thick with disbelief. You've been meeting him at the same restaurant, at the same table, several times over the last few weeks. You said you were meeting friends, but you were with him. You've been lying to me, Jennifer. All this time, you've been lying. Her hands were trembling now, and I could see the panic in her eyes. James, I swear, nothing happened between us. We just talked. We've never crossed that line. I've never cheated on you. Please understand. But I wasn't listening anymore. Every word she said felt like another lie, another attempt to cover up the truth. How could she expect me to believe that? How could she sit here and tell me that nothing had happened when I had all the evidence in front of me? The photos, the times they met, the intimacy in their gestures. It was all right there. I grabbed my phone again and scrolled through the other pictures Michael had sent. Each one was like a dagger to my heart. Jennifer laughing with him, smiling in a way I hadn't seen her smile at me in months. Jennifer and Andrew leaving the restaurant side by side, her arm brushing his as they walked out. It was clear as day that something was going on, and I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't. "How many times?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How many times did you look me in the eye, kiss me, sleep in our bed, hold our son, and then go meet him? How many times, Jennifer?" Her face crumpled, and the tears began to flow freely. "I felt alone, James," she sobbed, her hands reaching out to me, but I stepped back. "You were always so focused on Alex. Setting up the nursery, being the perfect dad. I felt invisible. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who made me feel seen. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. This wasn't the woman I had married. This wasn't the woman who promised to build a life with me. She had chosen to go behind my back, to build a secret connection with someone else while I was at home taking care of our son, the son we had both created. I was focused on being a dad because we have a son, Jennifer," I said through gritted teeth. "Our son. I'm sorry if I thought that was a priority. I'm sorry if I thought building a family meant something." Jennifer stepped closer, her hands reaching for me again, but I backed away. The pain was too raw. "James, please. It's not what you think. He's just a co-worker, James. We never crossed the line. I swear, we just had lunch together." I scoffed bitterly. "A co-worker who spends all that time with you, lying to your husband about where you are? A co-worker who touches you like that? Do you really expect me to believe this is just friendship?" "I swear it's not what you think," she cried, pleading now, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I didn't want to hurt you." I took a step back and looked at her, disgust and hurt mixing in my chest. "You didn't mean to hurt me? Then why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me about how you were feeling? Why didn't you tell me you felt neglected, instead of sneaking around with him?" She sank back down onto the couch, her head in her hands. "I didn't know how. I didn't know how to talk to you. Everything changed when Alex was born. You were so focused on being the perfect dad, and I didn't feel important anymore. The guilt washed over me, but it wasn't my fault. I tried to be the best husband I could be. I had tried to be the best father. But now, I realized I'd been living a lie too. I had trusted her with everything, and she had broken that trust. I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door. "I'm leaving. I'm going to my mom's for a few days. I need space to think. I can't do this right now." "James, please," Jennifer cried out as I turned to leave. "Don't take Alex. Please." I paused at the door, my hand on the handle, but I didn't turn around. I looked at Alex, sleeping soundly in his crib, oblivious to the storm that was raging in his world. "I'm not taking him now. But don't think this is over," I said quietly, my voice shaking with emotion. And with that, I walked out, leaving my wife, my family behind. I didn't know what I was looking for when I left that day. Was I searching for closure? For some kind of justification for Jennifer's actions? Maybe I was just trying to escape the suffocating feeling that had settled in my chest, knowing my life, my family, had just been shattered. The next few days felt like a blur. I stayed at my mom's house, staring at the walls, running through the events in my mind over and over again. I couldn't shake the image of Jennifer laughing with Andrew, her hand resting on his in that intimate gesture. The hurt was unbearable, but what was worse was the realization that she had been hiding something from me, something so deep that it had completely altered our marriage. I couldn't get past the thought that if I had known sooner, maybe I could have fixed it. Maybe I could have been more attentive, more present. But then again, how could I have known? How could I have seen the signs when Jennifer had been so good at hiding them? Her smiles, her reassurances that everything was fine, they had all been lies. But the truth was, I didn't want to stay lost in this pit of confusion. I needed to know more. I needed to understand what had happened and why. And I needed to make sure that if this was the end of my marriage, at least I would have the truth on my side. The following week, I did something I never thought I would do. I contacted a divorce lawyer. His name was Robert Chin, a well-known attorney in Los Angeles, specializing in family law. When I first called his office, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how I would feel when I walked into his office and spoke with him, but I was desperate for answers. When I arrived at Robert's office, he immediately put me at ease with his calm demeanor. He listened to my story, patiently letting me explain everything that had happened. I told him about the photos, the messages I had discovered, and the overwhelming feeling that Jennifer had betrayed me. He didn't interrupt, just nodded, and when I finished speaking, he asked a simple question that hit me harder than I expected. "Do you want to fight for your marriage?" Robert asked. I had no answer at first. Could I forgive her? Could I rebuild what we had, knowing she had deceived me? The thought of it was unbearable. But at the same time, I couldn't deny the love I still felt for Jennifer, the woman I had once built my whole life around. "I don't know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to know the truth. I need to know if this is the end, or if she's just confused." Robert leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled in front of him. "We can start by gathering evidence. If you want to move forward, we need to be prepared. Emotional infidelity is hard to prove, but with the right evidence, we can build case. You'll need to dig deeper into Jennifer's actions, what she's been doing, who she's been meeting. If you can get more concrete evidence, that will make all the difference." I felt a sick knot in my stomach. Was I really about to do this? Was I going to dig through my wife's life, looking for secrets I didn't want to know? But I realized I had no choice. I couldn't live with the uncertainty. I needed to know everything. Robert told me to gather any evidence I could find and to keep everything discreet. The next step was to hire a private investigator, someone who could follow Jennifer and document her actions. I agreed, reluctantly, but with no other options in mind. If this was the only way to uncover the truth, then I had to do it. As I left Robert's office, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled in my chest. I had always trusted Jennifer. I had always believed in her, in us. But now, that trust was gone, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. I couldn't help but wonder, was our marriage a lie all along? Had she been planning this for months? Or had it been something that happened out of nowhere? I spent the next few days trying to keep my mind occupied. I worked from my mom's house, keeping my routine as normal as possible, but every time I looked at my phone, I was reminded of the mess I was in. I couldn't stop checking the messages, the photos, the evidence that now seemed so clear. My mind was racing, but I kept going back to one question. What was Jennifer thinking? Why had she done this? It was almost a week later when I received the call from the private investigator. His name was Peter, and he had been following Jennifer for the past few days. His report was brief, but chilling. He had caught her meeting with Andrew multiple times at the same restaurant, just like the photos had shown. Each meeting was the same: long lunches, laughter, intimate conversations. Nothing overtly physical, but the connection was clear. Peter also discovered something else. Jennifer and Andrew weren't just meeting during lunch hours. They were texting and calling each other regularly, always under the guise of work or catching up. The lines between professional and personal had blurred, and it was obvious to Peter that their relationship had evolved into something more. When I heard the news, I felt numb. I had suspected it, but hearing it confirmed made it worse. I wasn't just dealing with emotional infidelity anymore. I was dealing with a full-blown affair. The trust that I had once placed in Jennifer had been completely shattered, and now I was faced with a choice. I could either accept it, try to move on, and salvage what was left of my family, or I could walk away and start over. But even as I stood there, holding the report in my hand, I knew one thing for certain. There was no going back. The days that followed felt like they were dragging on, each one blurring into the next. I couldn't escape the constant images of Jennifer with Andrew. The thought of her sitting across from him, smiling and laughing, was suffocating. I could still hear her voice in my mind, pleading with me that nothing had happened, that it was just lunch and catching up. But deep down, I knew better now. I knew she had crossed a line, and I couldn't just ignore it, no matter how hard I tried. I spent hours poring over the reports Peter had given me. Each detail, each photo, each text message, they only confirmed what I had feared. Jennifer wasn't just emotionally involved. She had already started planning her escape from our marriage. I didn't know when it started or how it happened, but the woman I thought I knew had been replaced by someone else. Someone who had been making plans, lying to my face, and betraying everything we had built together. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. But more than that, I felt sad. I wasn't angry at Jennifer anymore. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. How had I let her slip away from me without noticing? How had I been so focused on the perfect father and husband image that I had neglected to see the cracks in our relationship? I couldn't keep pretending that things were okay. I couldn't keep sitting in that house, waiting for things to magically fix themselves. So I did what I thought I had to do. I filed for divorce. The decision wasn't easy. In fact, it felt like the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. But I knew I couldn't keep living this lie. I needed to put myself first for once, and I needed to protect Alex. I couldn't let him grow up in an environment filled with distrust and resentment. He deserved better than that. I called Robert the next morning to let him know I was moving forward with the divorce. He was supportive but cautious. "It's going to be a long road, James," he said. "You have a strong case, but there will be challenges ahead, especially with custody. Jennifer won't give up without a fight." I knew that. I had seen how fiercely she loved Alex, even if her actions had shown otherwise. But I also knew that I had a right to fight for my son. I had been there for him every day, even when Jennifer had withdrawn. I was the one who fed him, changed his diapers, and held him when he cried. And now, I was the one who was going to protect him. The day I told Jennifer about the divorce was surreal. I had been dreading that conversation for days, but when the moment finally came, I was calm. Too calm, maybe. I had spent so many nights going over the conversation in my head that I had already prepared for her reaction. I knew she would beg, plead, try to explain, but none of it would matter anymore. The damage had been done. When I walked into the living room that afternoon, Jennifer was sitting on the couch, her face tired, her eyes swollen from crying. She had been doing that a lot lately, crying, apologizing, asking for forgiveness. But it wasn't enough anymore. Not after everything. "I'm filing for divorce," I said, my voice steady. Jennifer's face went white. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She looked like she had been slapped, like she couldn't believe what I was saying. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the lies, the secrecy, the betrayal. And I knew I couldn't keep living this way. "James, please," she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I love you. I've always loved you. Please, just give me a chance to fix this." I shook my head. "It's too late, Jennifer. You had your chance. You've lied to me, you've betrayed me, and you've hurt our family. I can't forgive that. Not right now. Not ever." She stood up and stepped toward me, her hands outstretched, but I stepped back. I couldn't let her touch me. Not after everything that had happened. "I'll fight for custody of Alex," I continued, my voice hardening. "You can see him, of course, but it will be on my terms. He deserves better than this. Better than what you've given him." The room was silent for a long moment. Jennifer's face crumpled, and she fell to her knees, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please, James. I can't lose him. I can't lose you. I'll do anything. Just please don't take him away from me." Her cries pierced through me, but I couldn't let them sway me. This wasn't about us anymore. It was about Alex and about creating a stable, honest life for him. "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I really am. But I have to do this for him. For both of us." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her sobbing on the floor. The sound of her tears echoed in my mind as I walked out of the house, but I knew I couldn't stay. Not anymore. The divorce process was just beginning, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy. But I had made my decision. There was no turning back now. The hardest part wasn't the divorce itself. It wasn't even the custody battle. It was the fact that I had to say goodbye to the woman I had once loved, to the life I had once built. The future I had imagined with Jennifer and Alex had crumbled, and all I could do now was start over. I didn't know where this road would take me, but I knew one thing for sure. I was going to rebuild. Brick by brick, piece by piece, I would make sure that Alex grew up in a home full of love and honesty. That's all that mattered now. I just had to find a way to move forward. And with that, I took a deep breath and began the hardest journey of my life. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Life felt like it had been put on pause, like I was in some sort of limbo. I spent most of my time at my mom's house, trying to adjust to this new reality. Every morning, I would wake up early, get Alex ready for the day, and then take him to his daycare before heading to work. It was a routine that was beginning to feel like the new normal, but it didn't make it any easier. I still couldn't believe that this was my life now. I had gone from being a husband and father with a family I thought was unbreakable to a single dad fighting for custody of his son. The weight of it all hung on me constantly, like an anchor pulling me under. There were moments when I felt like I was drowning, when the silence in my apartment at night would overwhelm me, or when Alex would ask about his mom and I didn't know how to answer. Despite everything, I tried to keep my focus. I had to. For Alex. He deserved better than this chaos, this uncertainty. And even though Jennifer and I were going through the motions of a painful divorce, I knew that I had to stay strong. I couldn't let him see me falter. The divorce proceedings moved forward slowly, with long stretches of silence between court dates. There were moments of tension, especially when Jennifer would reach out, always pleading, always apologizing, always trying to make things right. But the damage had already been done. I couldn't just flip a switch and forgive her. Trust wasn't something you could rebuild overnight. The hardest part was the custody battle. Jennifer, despite everything, was still his mother, and she fought hard to prove she could be a good mom. She begged the courts for shared custody, claiming that I was taking Alex away from her. She had the audacity to tell me she was doing this for Alex, that she was trying to be a better person, but I couldn't buy it anymore. She had broken our trust, and that wasn't something I could just ignore for the sake of compromise. I knew it was going to be a long fight, but I wasn't going to back down. I had already spent too much time caring for Alex, loving him, being there for him. I wasn't going to let someone who had betrayed me take him away. Around the same time, I started to find solace in small things. I threw myself into work, focusing all my energy on my projects. It was easier to keep my mind busy, to lose myself in tasks that didn't require me to think about my shattered marriage. I also started going to therapy. At first, I had resisted it. I wasn't sure what good talking to someone would do, but over time it helped. It helped me understand why I had let things go on for so long. It helped me realize that the pain I was feeling wasn't just from Jennifer's betrayal, but from my own choices. I had been so focused on being the perfect husband and father that I had missed the signs, missed the cracks in our marriage. Therapy also helped me understand something else. I wasn't alone. There were people who cared about me, who wanted to help me. I wasn't just fighting for my son. I was fighting for myself, too. I had to learn to heal, to move on, to rebuild. And that meant letting go of the past. As the months passed, I started seeing changes. Slowly, my life was starting to come together again. My work was going well, and I had a new apartment, one that was small but cozy, a place where I could finally breathe. Alex was thriving. He was growing into a happy, curious little boy who loved to explore. He was a reminder every single day of why I had to keep going, why I couldn't give up. It wasn't all easy. I still had moments where I felt completely lost, where the weight of everything was too much to bear. But each day, I felt a little stronger. Each day, I took one more step toward healing. And I started to realize that maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild my life without Jennifer. I also started dating again. It wasn't something I planned, but one day, while taking Alex to the park, I met Sarah. She was a preschool teacher, and we started talking while watching our kids play together. It felt like a small spark in the darkness. We began talking more, and soon enough, I found myself looking forward to our conversations. Sarah was kind, patient, and genuinely cared about kids, something that was important to me. We didn't rush anything. We took things slow, allowing ourselves to get to know each other again. It felt nice to feel wanted, to feel seen again. But even as things started to look up, Jennifer's presence in my life remained a constant reminder of what had happened. She would occasionally call, asking to see Alex, apologizing again and again for what she had done. But every time she reached out, I knew there was no going back. No matter how much she begged, I couldn't forget the betrayal. Then, one day, after about 6 months of separation, Jennifer reached out again, but this time it felt different. She had made some progress, at least in her own way. She had been to therapy too, trying to understand her actions, her guilt. She told me she had been working on herself and that she wanted to co-parent with me, to find a way to do right by Alex. It wasn't an easy conversation, and it didn't make everything magically okay. But it was a start. I agreed to meet her for a conversation, and we sat down in a neutral cafe, just the two of us. It felt like the first time we had really talked in months. She apologized again, but this time it felt like there was real sincerity behind it. We both agreed that Alex's well-being was the most important thing, and that we would have to find a way to be civil for his sake. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path. Maybe this new chapter wouldn't be exactly what I had imagined, but it was one I could live with. I wasn't going to let my past define me or my son's future. I was rebuilding brick by brick, and it was hard, but I was finally learning how to make something better out of the wreckage. It was painful, but in the end, I was going to be okay. And I would make sure Alex was too.